HR.com. Our timing's all crazy today, but I appreciate him joining us right now. Does a tremendous job covering the Eagles for ESPN.com and 97.5 The Fanatic. Mr. Tim McManus on the Comcast Business Hotline. How you doing today, Tim?
I'm doing well. Thanks for your patience and flexibility today. Obviously, a lot of moving parts here in Eagles.
No, I got a lot of stuff going on now. So let's just start off with the A.J. Brown first and then Jalen Hurts. A.J. Brown made it clear he wasn't apologizing, but he says, when I say passing, I wasn't talking about Jalen Hurts, even though it felt like that. He says, I'm not worried about feelings. And then as far as the Nick Sirianni said, you have to find some joy and win no matter what, he basically said, that doesn't apply to me, even though last year it didn't apply to him either. So let's just start on the A.J. Brown side first, since he spoke first. What do you make of what he said today and how he must be feeling?
Yeah, so the headline being me and Jalen are good. That's what everybody wanted to know. Is there something deeper that Brandon Graham was alluding to that could possibly derail this season? And what both A.J. Brown and Hurts said was that there's nothing to see here in that respect. And Brown said that what he said post-game was intentional, that he wanted to bring light to this because, they have been to the Super Bowl and they have had a good start to the season in 2023. And he didn't want like a here we go again type thing to happen. So he decided to bring attention to it in that way post-game. And so that's, he did it. He brought a lot of attention to it and even more came out of it. But yeah, I would say the headline from those guys is just basically trying to, brush away the fact of, we're not beefing, everything's fine.
So, I mean, in all honesty, how do you feel after all this? I mean, they talked about Brandon Graham, and he spoke out of place, they both said. So does that make you feel better about the situation? Does it make you feel better about the camaraderie here?
I think maybe combining that with reporting, too, Ricky. So I've reached out to some people that, would have an idea about their relationship to a certain extent, and people that got back to me were like, no, they're good. They're still friends, like all that kind of stuff. And then they echoed that sentiment. So it makes you think like there isn't, combine all that with the fact of like, they pray over one another pregame, they're celebrating touchdowns together. Sirianni said they eat lunch together all the time. It doesn't speak to some kind of big feud that's going on. That said, they got to fix the passing game. I mean,
that is true.
You know what I mean? Like, what's really the root of this frustration? They got to fix that because if it continues to sort of clunk along or not go up to like it sort of did last week, or not go up to the standards that they're hoping for, then you're going to have a frustrated A.J. Brown and a frustrated Devontae Smith, and this team's not going to be able to reach where it wants to go.
Going back to that, if they're so cool, why do you think Brandon Graham read it wrong? Because it seemed to us like Brandon Graham clearly thought there was an issue there, even though your reporting says there's not an issue there.
Yeah, at least so far. And to be clear, we're going to continue to report and dig and kind of find what we find. So it's not like it's over or anything like that. You want to make sure that you're thorough. But what Graham told me that night was that basically he assumed, based off of the videos that were circulating, which seemed like Brown was pointing the finger at Hurts, that there was something that wasn't there friendship-wise that had been there before. But it feels like he wouldn't just say that based off of a video at the same time, Ty. So, we have to sort of, we have to think this through. And I will say that, just kind of observationally, it doesn't feel like they're, like when I see them, in the locker room, like I don't see them talking a lot in the locker room. It felt like you could feel their, the buddy thing a little bit more when A.J. Brown first got here, as opposed to now. But I also feel like that doesn't mean like everything is bad. Like I think that this is a very pressurized situation. These guys have been through some things, including a collapse last year where people weren't on the same page. And, they're trying to accomplish, a mission here. And I think it's less about, this making sure that there's this very evident deep friendship and more about like, we want to win a Super Bowl, and we're going to hold each other to account to make sure that we get that. So that feels more of the vibe to me. I don't think it's splintered or anything like that. But dynamics change, which Hurts spoke about today. Like dynamics change when you're in this kind of environment.
Where is the focus? It's 5:19 on Wednesday. Where is this with the focus of this team right now?
Well, I mean, they all say that it's on the Steelers, and that's obviously where it should be. This is a critical game from the standpoint of this was always going to be a tough matchup. But that's a really good front that's coming in. That's a really good defense that's coming into Philly. Even without George Pickens on the other side, if he in fact does not play, it's still going to be like a physical, tough game, and was always one on the schedule, especially when Pittsburgh came out and started playing well early, that you knew they're going to give it all. And if they lose this game now, and the passing game isn't working, it now becomes a bigger deal because there was this whole frustration from Brown and words that he spoke, and BG on top of that, and does this mean anything extra? And they have to, calm the waters again, sort of like they had to do after Week 5. That's what they're looking at. But they say that the focus is clearly on Pittsburgh, that Sirianni addressed it in the team meeting and everybody moved forward, and that's at least the messaging. We'll see if that translates to good play on Sunday.
We're speaking with Tim McManus. He does a tremendous job covering the Eagles for ESPN.com and 97.5 The Fanatic. Let me ask you about another thing Jalen Hurts said today, where he says he was asked about maybe how the switch to run maybe threw him out of rhythm and things like that. And he made it very clear he's worried about winning. Now, I don't want to infer anything, but it felt like he was kind of saying that to AJ too, like, yeah, I'm kind of sacrificing as well by doing all this handing off, but we're winning, so I don't care. Am I looking too much into it when I think maybe he's trying to tell AJ, like, the main thing is winning, and while I understand we have to fix this passing game, we're winning a lot of football games.
Yeah, and I think that Hurts has always sort of abided by that, like whatever it takes, and that's messaging that he reiterated today, and I think that he does believe that, and that's sort of the way that he's wired. But there is something to be said for, this ground game has obviously been awesome, and they've been leaning on it really heavily ever since, the 3 offensive linemen knocked on Nick's door during the bye week. And it's worked for them. They've won 9 straight. The flip side of it is that they pass the ball less than anybody else in the NFL, which means that there's less time on task, less reps, less opportunities in live action, and less of a chance to get into a flow. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so, the question really becomes, as we now get into like the real important months of the NFL season, is that you're going to face good teams, and one of them's coming down the pike on Sunday. If they hold down Saquon, is the passing game up for it to carry them? It's going to have to happen at some point. I don't know if it's going to be this week, if it's the divisional round, the NFC Championship. Maybe it doesn't happen to the Super Bowl, but there is a time where this passing game is going to have to throw the game on its back. And it's still an outstanding question right now whether they're capable of it. They're obviously their talent, absolutely capable of it, but we just haven't seen it hit that rhythm yet. And some of that you would have to think is the fact of, they just don't have that many chances in games, something that they're going to have to manage as they get into the playoffs.
All right, a tough timing week last week, with Carolina coming in. I didn't feel like they came out with that energy that they normally do every other game. Is that past now? Is the energy level going to be kicked back up because it's the Steelers coming back in and it's going to be business as usual moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, you would have to think they're going to be way up for this game. They're going to have to be. And some of that, I agree, like there is a flow to the schedule. You got the LA trip and you come home and you're at Baltimore. That's a big game. And then you have Carolina. And are you going to bring your A game to that one? And even if you try your best, like, isn't there always going to be a little bit of a psychological dip based off of kind of the flow of the season? And so now here comes Pittsburgh in a big one. I expect them to obviously going to have their full attention, and you would imagine the energy would be back up. And you especially want to look on the defensive side of the ball because a lot of the attention has been on the passing game, but I don't think that was the defense's best performance either. They're giving up some long third downs. The running game, Carolina was able to get going a little bit, so that's going to be a key to see if they can sort of bounce back after a close one against the Panthers.
My boss never wants me to ask yes or no questions, but you could expound on it. Last thing, is it possible that they've ran the ball too much this season? With what this applies to both Jalen and AJ and maybe Devontae. I know they've been winning. Is it possible that the game plan, forget Hurts play or anything, is too run heavy?
Well, that is a good journalistic principle, number one.
Yeah.
Open-ended questions, unless you absolutely need the yes and no. But, I'm not going to leave you hanging like that, Ty. Yeah, I don't think that they've been running it too much.
Okay.
Right? Like, I don't think that they've been running it too much because it's been the recipe that has worked for this team. I think what it is that we're starting to look at this team with a more critical eye now because they've gotten past the point of like, all right, can they get their stuff together and be a decent team, or are they going to collapse like last year? Okay, they've answered that question. And then they rattled off 9 straight. And now it starts to become like, as they're flirting with the number 1 seed of like, you know, can they be a Super Bowl winner? So the bar keeps lifting up, and we start analyzing it from a higher place and from a different perspective of now it's like, all right, if they want to get there, the passing game has to. So I don't think they've been running too much, but I do feel like, especially if they get into a part where like they're locked into the number 2 seed and those games for all intents and purposes, like maybe don't matter as much, you know, start working on the passing game more in game, I think would be a pretty good idea. So I think they do need more time on task. I do think it's an important area to focus on.
Well, Tim, I appreciate you coming on. We had to change everything around. Has not been a boring week. We'll see what happens.
Been a busy week.
Come Sunday. Appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Always an adventure, guys. Love being on with you. Talk to you soon.
All right, thanks so much. That was Tim McManus. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate it. If you want more of this content, make sure you like and subscribe. And, you know, you can do that kind of over here if you want more of the best show ever.